yeah. So there's two really quickly. Then there was two key points for me really today to talk to everybody about, and that is one, the emergence of our community conversations. So a series of workshops that have been born from Lucy's wider determinants, the impacts of wider determinants on healthy life expectancy report. And in essence, what we're looking to do is bring people together in a space that where they feel safe, that they feel that they belong in a conversation, because often we don't, people who are seldom heard or furthest from these types of conversations often don't feel comfortable in these types of environments, or that though they have their contribution is valued. We're trying to flip the script a little bit and do things quite differently. So we're using quite expansive approaches to start conversations with people about what really matters, and we're bannering our community conversations under the theme of what if everyone had what they needed to thrive. So starting conversations with people about the types of barriers that they face, the inequalities or the conditions that have led to inequalities in their life and at what points in their life, and the interconnectivity of how a barrier or a type of inequality at X point in someone's life has led to an impact on poorer health outcomes or a poorer quality of life further down the line. And really important here is that all of these stories and all of these experiences it's really rich it's a really rich source of data. Lucy's illustration that she shared earlier, I also put into mine, which I pinched off Sappy actually. It really nicely articulates how data, hard numbers, actually doesn't do it's important, but it tends to sort of map misery, whereas storytelling, bringing people together, is really empowering, and it creates agency and it creates networks. And that's what thank you, James. That's what is great, isn't it? That's what we're looking to do here. It's not about coming together and just talking. It's not about coming together and just sharing stories and experiences. It's about sharing ourselves, our whole selves, bringing our experiences and our stories of inequality and the barriers that we face into a space where people feel they can be honest, they can be open, they can cry, they can shout, they can scream, they can sing, whatever's needed. But we're creating networks, and that network brings with it agency, and it shifts power. And we're going to try things, and we're going to be brave, and we'll fail, and we'll succeed. But our role, the STP's role here, is to resource this. And actually, it's a system level conversation. It's made up of people from the Black Country and West Birmingham, but there are amazing pockets of co-productive and participatory action work going on in Wolverhampton, the Wolverhampton for Everyone team, Dudley CoLab. So it's about how we align and complement those pieces of work. But from the system level stuff will emerge amazing network strength. The strength in those networks can come into place, and we can support it to tackle inequalities and shared themes. So everybody's welcome at our community conversations. We had 70 registered at the first event last December. We've got 80 registered for tomorrow, so it is growing, and the people participating in these events are shifting from being the professionals to the people that are affected by inequality. So we are gathering stories and all of this rich content, and we're using it to action together and come up with solutions. We're also inviting people to shape and lead them. If people want to be facilitators, mental health first trainers, if they want to be, we do a lot of we capture all of the outputs in visual form. If they want to be artists, if they want to host, frankly, I'll take a back seat and people can host. Anybody can take a role in this as they want, and we are training and supporting people with the necessary courses to do so. So it's everyone's rolling up the sleeves and mucking in a little bit, but it's going to be a really important way of giving communities and giving people who are often, as we say, seldom heard, hard to reach. Let's face it, these are just people that have otherwise been easy to ignore, giving them a sense of belonging and a contribution in and around a discussion that often they've been furthest away from. But at the same time, it has the ear of some rather senior members of health and statutory bodies. So I think this is a real important vehicle in tackling inequalities across communities, geographies, and across various themes. So really, please join in. James has put a link to tomorrow's workshop in. We're going to try and get another one in before the end of April, but they'll be every couple of months. And actually, as this starts to evolve, we see it as a blended approach to working with and alongside people and communities. We may look to commission some community-led research where there's gaps in intelligence. We're also looking to do more outreach because not everyone wants to be part of a workshop, let's face it. So we need to go into communities and build rapport and build trust with those that otherwise don't want to participate in a virtual or face-to-face workshop. So that's the plan. We're learning as we go, but we want everybody to be a part of this and feel as though they have a sense of ownership over it. The other theme then for me to talk about is the STP seems a little bit like something which to all of us, which is we don't fully understand it perhaps, and it sits a little bit over here, but we hear it mentioned. So for me, a big part of my role is understanding how we can bring the wider sector, you all, into a conversation around the STP and be part of the evolution of the STP, have greater influence and involvement in the strategic decision-making conversations that align with the services and projects that you deliver much earlier on in those conversations to make sure that the voluntary sector, as it has been in the past, is brought in at the end. And I think Ian's mentioned GPs patting people on the head in the past, but we want the voluntary sector to be involved much further up, much earlier upstream in any kind of decision making. So I'm looking at an infrastructure. I often call it the plumbing, and I've nicked that off Andy Graham in Dudley actually. The plumbing that's going to allow neighbourhood level voluntary and community sector organisations for there to be a two-way flow of information from the STP right down to neighbourhood level. And what we're looking at doing is creating a voluntary sector leadership alliance. So a system level alliance that's made up of representatives from all of the 5 places across the Black Country and West Birmingham that directly interfaces with the STP. And by that, I'm talking about the work streams and the programme leads and, the sort of system level enablers and the governance structures within that complex tapestry of health and statutory bodies, giving us that direct connection with them that then can be disseminated back out into place through existing forums and existing structures, but ultimately brings you all closer to that conversation and enables you to become part of that conversation and, really importantly, influence it, shape it. And when opportunities arise to become part of consortia or to collaborate and partner with other organisations around certain themes, those you will know about them right at the very beginning. That's the plan. So I'll be sort of developing this alliance over the coming months. But what I'd like to do is invite anybody that's interested in learning more about the STP or actually potentially participating on behalf of your Wolverhampton voluntary sector in a system level alliance to give me a shout, to get in touch, and we can start to let you know a little bit more about it and what the opportunities are. It's not ultimately about money, it's about shaping the agenda and making sure that the voluntary sector is an equitable partner in all of this. But ultimately, Simeon mentioned something earlier on about finances, and it led me to think about a meeting that I was involved in yesterday, and this is my final point. Whilst Lucy sort of suggested that there aren't any proposed restructures and associated budget cuts, that is the case from what I'm hearing as well. But actually what I am learning is that for our system to become fit for purpose, which is one of the STP's strategic goals, it needs to be more efficient. To become more efficient, we're looking at things like CCG mergers and acute service collaboration. So as a system, we spend a lot of money on acute services. Now, 1% of the resource that is put into acute services is diverted into the community, actually increases community finances by 8%. So what I'm suggesting is that actually as the system becomes more efficient, as mergers take place or acute collaborations merge, what we'll see is an opportunity for existing money to be diverted elsewhere within the system to have a greatest impact. So we're getting the best from every pound we're spending. That's not to say that there won't be new money also coming into the system. So I think this is an exciting opportunity and one which our voluntary sector's got an enormous role to play in. And, I think the Alliance is going to be an important vehicle for bringing you all a little bit closer to it. So get in touch, give me a shout.